All right. Well, welcome, Thomas Gilbert. We are here to talk about your data analytics elective, and I'm just going to ask you a few questions about the class so that students can get a feel for what they may be signing up for. So my first question is really just to give a brief overview of the class and kind of your pitch for why MBA students should take it.
All right, well, thanks, John. It's a pleasure being here. It's a pleasure connecting with everyone. I hope that everyone will take my class. I exaggerate. I think there's some class capacity size, but my class is really, so it's currently labeled as data analytics and finance, but I think it's slowly moving towards something more like machine learning and data analytics in business economics, since I'm in the Department of Finance and Business Economics, and not just narrow finance. And my goal is to hit a few topics. One is, data management, data analytics in finance. So things like analyzing mutual fund managers, but like the entire universe of mutual fund managers and how to try to predict which mutual fund managers might outperform in the future, or how to do historical analysis on big data sets like this, using methods we learned in core finance, like the CAPM and factor models. Moving into sort of predictions, like how do we make predictions in the time series? In finance, most prediction algorithms are about, well, predict the future, predict future interest rates, predict future recessions. So how do we think about simple models and time series forecasting? And then from that, and I think this will be novel in going forward in the class, is really moving into machine learning and trying to understand what is machine learning. And machine learning is very simple. It's just basically making predictions at scale in real time with a feedback loop of data learning. So where the new data comes in, retrains the model, makes new predictions. New data comes in and feeds in this learning loop. And really understanding this and trying to apply them in different business contexts that is not just pure finance, but have maybe some more marketing angles or supply chain angles and so on. So business economics at large. And then the last two topics that I hit in the class, because they don't, partly because they're not covered in other data classes, big data classes or marketing analytics classes that I've discovered over the years, my colleagues are not teaching. One is causal inference. So causal inference is really about moving, you've all heard the term, correlation is not causation. We're trying to dig deeper into this. What does it mean? And how could we, if we really wanted to say this causes that, what would we need from a data point of view and from a methods point of view? And so we spent a couple of weeks on this big topic of causal inference, which is very important for businesses, right? Amazon not only wants to make predictions about future inventory or what is this customer going to do, but sometimes they also regularly, they really are interested in what causes this, or something has happened and they want to know why, because they want to make sure it doesn't happen again. Or they want to know that if they change something, they want to know what the likely consequence is going to be. So causal inference is also very important from a business point of view. And the last piece of the course at the end is working a little bit on natural language processing. So I have a couple of weeks where we do textual analysis and try to build some sentiment index based on text, which I think is something that is coming more and more to the forefront, has come more and more to the forefront. Think again about Amazon, where they have millions of reviews posted online, and they try to extract information from these reviews about product safety or fake advertisements or all sorts of things like this. And so understanding of basic concepts of how our algorithms based on language can work, and we can extract some simple things. But I think the overarching theme of this is going to be more and more machine learning in business. And machine learning, once again, is about predictions in real time, at scale, with a learning loop as new data comes in. And I would really like it if at the end of the quarter, this concept is clear and through a project is implemented by student teams. And I'm hoping that going forward, I can work with a company actually to have a project that is a real business problem that a company is thinking about and that you guys may be able to work on. So it's just some ideas.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think just seeing all the job postings that come up, you see machine learning everywhere. So having that skill, I think, will be really useful for students. Now, some people listening to this might be a little intimidated by hearing machine learning because maybe they don't have any experience with it. So can you talk about what students might need in their background to be ready for this course and what they might not need, to kind of have people be able to monitor, like, am I ready for this class?
Yeah. So, well, I'm a super scary person, so I mean, you just have to be ready for this. But the key question there is not so much on machine learning. This people need really no knowledge of anything in that area to take this class. The bigger question is, how much R do you need? And I'm not listing R as a prerequisite because I don't want it to be a barrier. If someone is willing to learn and they have, however, never touched code, I think they're welcome in the class. But I want to make it clear that it's a steep learning curve. Like, I'm not going to teach R. We're not going to spend a week to 2 weeks doing the basics of R and then go into, finance and data analytics in business and machine learning in business. It's going to be like immediately those topics in R. Now I have a fantastic TA, and she's there to help, and I'm here to help, and so on. And there's lots of resources online. So what I would rather people focus on a little bit potentially is ahead of the quarter to download RStudio, to install R, to take maybe an hour tutorial. There's tons of resources online to just to get going. Like, how do I load a data set? How do I do a simple average, standard deviation? Like, just how do I manipulate data? How do I run a simple regression, like a CAPM type of regression of stock returns on the market return or whatever? Like, just something easy like this would be really great. But otherwise, from a content point of view, from that's more the tool. But from a content point of view, I think just having taken core finance is just fine.
Sounds good. And then for people that maybe aren't getting an internship or a full-time position in finance, but are still curious about this course, what would you say is the applicability for those students that see this as a very interesting topic, but it might not immediately apply in their job? Do you think that they will get certain skills out of this course that will be helpful?
Yeah, so I mean, this is why I'm slowly moving the class, and the title right now still remains Data Analytics in Finance, but I think I would eventually like to move it towards machine learning and business economics. Like, I really would like the class to be centered on this. And so applications in business for businesses, and my work over the last couple of years as an Amazon scholar has showed me a lot of how machine learning is used in a company like Amazon and elsewhere. And so there's some, I think, more and more these kinds of topics are showing up no matter what firm you work for. And so having some knowledge of what machine learning is, understanding what it can do, what it cannot do, what it's useful for, what it's not useful for, what should simply be done in Excel because it's a simple task and you really don't need some big model and some big machine learning algorithm. But then where can machine learning be useful? I think learning this, even if you're going to be the marketing manager, whatever, at Nordstrom, this is still very useful because all these companies are thinking about this. And if you work for a startup, potentially very quickly, it's going to be, some model running on AWS, helping you scale operations or scale targeted advertising or scale supply chain or scale inventory management. And these models are very, very powerful for this. These systems are very powerful where now it's trying to hit so many people, because again, I'll repeat, right? Machine learning is making predictions at scale in real time with a feedback learning loop. And so the moment you're thinking, well, we're trying to hit millions of customers and I want to react instantaneously fast. Somebody clicks, I want to send them a pop-up window that says, hey, you're doing this. Maybe you were interested in that. The moment you want to do something like this, it's called machine learning. Like, you just can't do this manually. You can't do it in Excel. And so I think this is relevant in many, 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 many job postings nowadays. People going into supply chain, there's more and more automation going on there. And so I think these topics are really relevant for a wide variety of jobs. Now, there always remain, like, the class is in R. And so, yes, there's some cost of coding, which some people might be thinking, well, I'm not going to be in a job or an internship where I'm going to have to code. So why would I want to, spend all my time coding with Thomas? And I agree with this. I've tried to make the code more and more like supportive. Like, we code in class, but mostly we work through the code. We look at the code. and work through it. Yeah, the assignments have some coding in them, just because I think at some point it's useful to get your hands dirty and try to figure it out. But it's not, it's really it's an elective, it's not core. I'm there, I want people to learn and enjoy it and not view it as, this massive labor, but there's a bit of a fixed cost there.
Yeah. I think I really resonate with the part where you said knowing when to use Excel and when to use R, because I think there's still that safety net of, oh, I'll just do this in Excel, even if it might be less efficient to do it in Excel.
That's right.
So moving on to maybe more finance specific now. Do you have any examples of students who have taken the class in the past that were in a finance role and things that they got out of this class that they now do use out in practice?
Oh, that's tough. I'm not sure I have a specific example of someone who said, I think the things I've heard was that one, they did get exposed to R, not necessarily directly, or to coding, right? I mean, we chose R as a business school. It's a huge argument. Maybe we should be doing Python or whatever, but at some level, these languages are somewhat the same, or SQL. And so getting your hands dirty in code is useful to understand what the data scientist might be doing, even if you're not the data scientist or the data analyst. And I think what I've heard from some evening students last year was that discussions of causal inference were very useful, because there's a lot of slippery language in firms by management or even in the media of X causes Y. And I think a deeper understanding of where is the limit of that argument, when is it needed? Like, to make predictions, you actually don't need to prove causality. You just want a predictive signal. But then if you have predictions, you can't immediately jump in and say, well, X predicts Y, therefore X causes Y. That's not true either. And so I've heard feedback from people saying, oh, this has really helped me be sharper in my meetings with science or with data folks in these discussions, and with management, about being just more precise about what we mean exactly. But I don't have, it's a good point, I don't have anyone, we don't place a lot of students in quant finance jobs, like a quantitative hedge fund, for instance, where potentially these skills would be really, really applied. So I don't know of anything there, but this might just be, I've only been offering this elective for a couple of years, so we might need a little bit more time.
Yeah. And maybe looking into the future, where do you see analytics being used for finance? Maybe more of those traditional corporate finance roles. Where do you think that that's going, and how is this class kind of aligned with your prediction of what skills people are going to need in the future?
Yeah. So I think in corporate finance, and I want to do a little bit more in that direction as well. So in corporate finance jobs, like standard corporate finance roles, there I have to say that most likely the vast majority of tasks can still be done in Excel. Like if it's running cost of capital, if it's building an NPV, you don't need R, and it's not a massive model, right? There's no deep learning going on or whatever. And what I've heard is more useful there, and that we don't cover it in my class, but is potentially SQL as a tool to extract data, to do some basic data analysis, some basic data cutting, to understand, what's happening in different divisions that you oversee, or how are costs or profits or accruals, cut one way or another across quarters and so on. And being able to extract this data where SQL can be quite powerful. Now, that's not in my class, but something for people to potentially keep in mind, and we might need to look into this as a business school to add as a class or certificate or whatever. Now, I think I'm more I think from a finance point of view, I think prediction is very important, right? There's a lot of prediction algorithms out there trying to predict, future interest rates, predict recessions, predict stock returns, predict mutual fund manager performance. And so this whole idea of the time series prediction from today to tomorrow is obviously critically important in finance. And that I try to do, as much of it as is feasible in the time. But there's another level of prediction that happens in many firms, which is more what I call cross-sectional prediction. So from the behavior of a set of customers, what are other sets of customers going to do? Given what you know about some people, what are other people going to do? That's more the standard machine learning type of idea. And there, while this may not be pure finance folks need to oversee these projects, and they need to decide whether to fund these projects and interact with science. And so if you don't really understand what is going on from a technique point of view, then it's very difficult to be involved in these discussions. And that's why I think my elective is moving towards, data analytics / machine learning in business and business economics, because I think these things span the gamut of roles. And multiple people, I see this at Amazon, where we have meetings with the science team, the business team, and the finance team, and potentially even the marketing team or the lifecycle engagement team. And these people have to somehow connect and talk the same language for a product, for a machine learning solution to a problem to be pushed forward. And that's what I'd like to make more and more accessible to folks. And lastly, like I do, some of it is I'm also always interested in making you guys better voters and better thinkers about the world. You vote whichever way you want. Like, it's not about which one is the right vote, but just more critical of the public discussion out there. And I think discussions of causal inference, they are very, very useful, because there's a lot of slippery slopes in public discussions about X causes Y. And I think we need to be very careful in these dimensions, because people claim things that are not true. We've heard a lot of this in COVID times, but this spans the gamut of topics. And I think there's a lot to learn from it. At some level, it's a data question. And I think being clear in terms of this data analytics is really important.
Yeah, I agree. And then one last quick question for you, probably your favorite question. What does the workload of the class look like? Structure in terms of assignments, exams, group projects? What can people expect?
Yeah, so there are no exams. First of all, it's an elective. I'm really all about learning. There's not quite weekly homework. I think it's roughly 6 homework over the quarter. Typically, I only expect, like, I always drop one, and I grade them. Anna and my TA and I grade them very, what's the right word? Not like 22 points out of 25, but I basically grade them poor, average, good, very good. Like very broad buckets, because it's coding, and I cannot, and my TA cannot either go through every line of code for every student and check every line. So it's roughly, do you get the right answer? Are you way off? Are you close to? Things like this. And so it's about people putting their best step forward. And some people say, hey, I didn't have time to finish, and it's totally fine. It's an elective. This is, for those of you who've taken core with me, this is very different, because it's an elective. It's all about learning and learning together, rather than, hey, this grade, and so on and so forth. And then there's a group project. We've always had a group project. And in the past, it's been, well, come up with a question, find the data, and answer it. I think maybe we'll do that again. It's been tough in the past, because it's hard to come up with a good question. It's hard to find the data, and then let alone solve it, or to try to solve it. So what I'm hoping to do, and I'm looking into various alternatives, is potentially have a firm submit a problem to us, and then everybody works on that same problem, or maybe a couple of problems that this firm is thinking about. I'm talking to a local bank, for instance, about a couple of things, and then this is just a quarter-long project, and that's it. So
that sounds great. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk about your elective and help students figure out if this is the right course. I know I will be taking it in the spring, so I look forward to it.
Sounds
And
good.
then this will be a resource for people to use for years to come.
Sounds good. Great.
So
Thanks a lot, John. Appreciate it.
thank you. Talk to you later.